Can an evangelical Christian vote for a Mormon to be president? That's the question we're beginning to explore. We're now coming back to Romney and education. Romney continues in his position on education by stating that we need to eliminate unnecessary certification requirements that discourage new teachers. For instance, the federal high qualified teacher requirements, while well-intentioned, only serves to reinforce hurdles that prevent talented individuals from entering the teaching profession in the first place. Let me explain to you something about that. The person may be trained with a doctorate in mathematics, but if they have not received a degree in education, they usually are not qualified to be teachers. Teachers are usually trained in processes of education, and for the most part, not always well in the subject matter of which they are to teach. Romney says we need to have well-qualified, talented people who can teach in the profession in the first place. Higher education, he says, it has to have a new vision of affordable and acceptable learning. America's traditional community of four-year colleges are the heart of our nation's higher educational system. However, a flood of federal dollars driving up tuition and burdening too many among Americans with substantial debt have left us with too few opportunities. Meanwhile, other models of advanced skill trainings are becoming even more important to succeed in American economic practices and tradition in education. And new educational institutions are going to be required to fulfill those roles that are coming up in the nation economically. Romney's reform spurs the access, affordability, innovation, and transparency that's needed to address these challenges in post-secondary education. He also says that we need to strengthen and simplify the financial aid system. A lot of people say he makes no position whatsoever on students and student aid, but that's not true. He has written a platform position, and he says that what we need to do is consolidate duplicative and over-complex programs within the Department of Education. Focus the department on giving students and families with financial needs the appropriate information about completion and persistence, loan repayment rates, future earnings, and other indicators to intelligently weigh the risk and benefits of the many options available to them, rather than limiting choices through punitive regulations. Romney also advocates that we welcome the private sector's participation instead of trying to push it away. In other words, again, reverse President Obama's nationalization of the student loan market and welcome private sector participation in providing information, financing, and education itself. He also says we need to replace burdensome regulations with innovation and completion. We need to encourage market entry by innovation in new educational models. Emphasize skills to be obtained instead of time spent in the classroom. In other words, you need a mixture of both class and skill development. Support research and development in the university system. Repeal confusing and unnecessary regulations that primarily serve to drive higher cost in education and replace them with common sense reforms that ensures appropriate student outcomes. Romney also holds that American parents should not only be encouraged to abandon the public schools, they should be rewarded for it. Romney signaled his willingness to undermine public education through the expansion of charter schools and voucher programs. I'm all for it. Romney offered to extend the taxpayer credits to the market as school choice parents who opt out to teach their own children at home. He said this, I believe, quote, parents who are teaching their kids at home, homeschoolers, deserve a break. And I've asked for a tax credit to help parents in their homes with the cost of being an at-home teacher, unquote. I applaud Mr. Romney for that. Far more important, of course, than the cost of tax credits to homeschooling parents is the start of an irreversible journey down the pathway of undermining American public education. School choice needs to be a free market conservative position that ought to be implemented because it brings with it social conservative teachings in which we free up our educational system from statist mentality. Finally, a president who wants to lift up education and not dumb it down is something that is currently very much needed. And I say with the privatization of public education, if that is its outcome, I'm all for this president. Now, don't get me wrong. I do not believe in state education. And I believe state education only teaches statist education. It will not teach anything but what the state intends it to teach because the state controls the education. And it's controlled from the federal level down into the state, and the state controlling it down, and not the parents determining what ought to be taught to their children to make them responsible. Little parental influence is going on. I'm for privatization, and everything that Mitt Romney has put forth in his platform so far, I am much in favor of. I think it is a just and good, equitable system. Does it bring full recognition to all the needs of how things need to be addressed? Of course not. But we haven't had a president in 60 years who's even come close to that or longer. So I think it's important that we do understand, though, he has really given us some important areas in which he has allowed us to interact and to create opportunities that we have thus before never been afforded and will not be afforded in the Obama administration. The worst program that we can put our children in is the statist school system as it exists today. We need to be able to pull our children out of these statist systems. Get that statist mentality out of their mind, that antichrist philosophy that goes on in that public educational system, and recognize it for what it is, nothing but the evangelistic arm of the antichrist, the state itself, which has now thought itself to become God. Does Romney do all of that? Of course not. But has he created opportunities for us to withdraw our children, to teach them, and to get them out under that influence and mandatory control? Absolutely. I think that's important to consider as we consider this man for President of the United States.